Here we are for our fourth webinar launched by Joana Saahirah's World. I want to say thank you, Katie, for being here. So first of all, I'm welcoming you. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for the theme you proposed, which I think it's so important and so rare. It is not even mentioned, much less discussed. So the theme, as you all know, is healing through dance. And when Katie proposed this theme, I just thought it was perfect, not only because that's something that Katie has developed in particular. So I'm very interested in her own perspective and her experience and how she sees healing happening through dance in herself and in her students. But also because, as I mentioned, this is one side of Egyptian dance and in dance in general that people don't work enough. We're so focused most of the time on the technical performance side of dance. And I think there is a huge potential in dance, not only in Egyptian dance, for self-knowledge and for healing. So it's all good. And there's so many reasons why you should be excited about this theme. But before we launch the theme, I'm gonna ask you, Katie, what I ask all my guests, which is, first of all, present yourself. Tell us who you are in terms of dance, in terms of art, in terms of teaching. How would you define yourself?
Ooh, okay. So I guess more and more the last 10 years, the word have been coming to me is sacred dance therapist. So again, it's not really something that exists or that people have heard of. The way that my work has been traveling, it's developed more into that as I'm working more with cultural dances and sacred dance that again not many people have heard of, and the way that I've begun to interweave those together, and I feel that because of my experiences as a performer and professional dancer, I needed the sacred dance side of things to balance things out for me, because I'm not naturally a diva, or like when I was working in India, it was a completely different world that I was thrown into, and it really for my own well-being that I needed this sacred dance to give me the yin to the yang that I was living in. So,
and let me tell you something, I think it's great that you're creating a new area for yourself. I mean, why shouldn't you, right? I mean, we are in dance for different reasons and in different areas of specialization, let's say, of expertise. But if you find your path in something that has not been done before, or if you consider yourself, a sacred dance teacher, guider, whatever, why not? That's so exciting. That is very, very exciting. And I think you should go fully for it, because that's probably where you will find yourself and your mission. So I'm all for it. That's great. Okay, second question before we launch our main theme. How would you define Egyptian dance? What is your personal definition of Egyptian dance?
okay, well, I think Egyptian dance is a sacred dance. It's one of the sacred dances because it comes from the people. It comes from a particular area. It's from the heart of the people. So when people are dancing passionately, that's when things become sacred and they become more meaningful. So to me, it's really about dancing from the heart, whether that's to perform or just to dance for fun at a hafla. It's really about dancing the essence rather than trying to be perfect or trying to have particular moves or show. It's really about being you.
Okay, that's great. By the way, let me tell you guys, the participants, you can share your questions and feedback in the chat box, and I'll be checking what you write. And in the end of our webinar, I'm going to collect one question for us to answer. And if there are more than one questions, we will address them later on in other formats. So feel free to communicate with us through live chat, okay? Now, let's launch the theme of healing through dance. My first question to you is dance a healing tool? And how can we use it as a healing tool? So they are two big questions, actually. So is dance a healing tool, yes or not? And how do you consider it a healing tool?
Okay, yeah, yes, very definitely. It's a healing tool. And I think that it can go as deep as, depending on how far you're willing to go into yourself and all the parts of you. For me, it started in a very simple way because I danced from when I was 3 years old. So to me, the feeling that I had growing up was I feel good when I dance. No matter what was happening at school or exams or whatever it was, I would go to class, I felt good. So this was my insight. Once I began teaching and women would tell me, as you get to know them and they start to tell you about what's happened in their lives. And I really began to see how it was a lifeline for some people, and understanding all the reasons why dance class every week meant so much to them. This is when I was more from the technique choreography side. So eventually I began to think, well, if it can go as deep as that, with where the emphasis is on performing and being together as a community, then if we have a different kind of presence and consciousness with it, where else can it go to? And I really think it isn't about the movements being perfect and the technique being in a certain way. It's about the kind of intention and visualization that you have as you make those movements, and being really conscious with your body. So you're listening to her or him and following where the energy of the essence of you is moving you within those moves.
Okay. Let me add something. So every once in a while when I do a question, I may or not add something if I feel like it completes the answer. I think everybody who has ever danced, any style of dance, so we're not even talking about Egyptian dance specifically, I mean, any kind of dance, they have experienced this sense of well-being. So that's dopamine, the happiness hormone being released by the sheer pleasure, movement, and music can operate in us, can awaken in us. So there is like this, I would call it a more superficial effect of dance, which is quite cool. I mean, feeling better when you dance without knowing why and without further consequences is already really good, just like exercising, just like going for a run. There are many ways of feeling better through physical movement, may that be dance or not. But where I really want to know, and I want to go deeper than that, beyond the physical well-being and the sense of freedom and joy that we all get from dancing, do you think there is any connection between Egyptian dance in this case, so let's specify, and a contact with realities within us that may be limiting us, blocking us, making us unhealthy, making us unhappier, making us less confident in our own skin? So we're talking, of course, about, fears. And I'm sure as a teacher, you have witnessed this. So people come to our classes and workshops in all sorts of conditions. And many times they come just as we, totally unaware of the traumas and the insecurities and the wounds they are carrying around, because many of these wounds and these things that we carry around, they are unconscious. We are not aware they're there, but still they're operating. I'm giving you an example so that everybody understands what I mean, and I'm sure everybody can relate. For instance, dancers with low self-esteem, for whatever reason. So a dancer who has a very low self-esteem, who doesn't actually love her body, who has self-hatred towards herself, who believes she's not particularly creative, or she's not able of moving interestingly, or believe that she is not interesting enough as a person, this will change drastically the way this person is going to move, and the way she will allow herself to feel the music and to express herself through the music. And of course, this has consequences in her life as well. So someone who arrives to a class with this level of insecurity and lack of self-confidence will have the same lack of self-confidence in her life. So these are issues that are not only for the dance classroom. There are issues that go beyond the dance classroom. Do you feel dance can help us dig into those deeper wounds, into those unconscious issues that are limiting us in the dance and outside of the dance?
Yeah, I think even if, like you say, they're unconscious, if you can imagine, if somebody's very shy and, they're very shy and quiet and their body might be quite closed. And then if they learn, say, drum solo choreography and they perform that in a hafla and you can't drum solo in that way like this. You have to open and you have to give it that cheeky smile. So even that in itself may be enough to help them come out of that kind of enclosure that they're in and to begin to open more like a flower. In the same way, if it was dancing classical and they're making bigger movements, naturally it's going to be opening their heart, it's opening their body, and it's more of a lift to it, and in the way that we have to present and hold ourselves. So all of these ways, although it may not be obvious as we're learning those choreographies and those movements, it's opening our body and it's activating parts of our body in a way that we may not expect. Because even if you're learning the movements, the way that I would think, say with baladi, with the taksim, and it's almost like those moves with the hips of the eights and the circles, to me it's almost like you're kind of digging down into yourself, into your womb, into your groin, and going through the layers there. So what will you find as you go through each layer, and then as you connect that to your heart to dance, and what can come forth from that?
Okay. Can you specify or give examples of what exactly we can heal through dance? Because I know that when we discuss the theme, when we say healing through dance, it resonates something very obvious to you because that's your work and that's your vision. And it certainly resonates as something very obvious to me because that's also a huge part of my work. But I'm aware that for most students and even many professionals in the Egyptian dance field, when we speak about healing through dance, they don't know what we're talking about. It may seem obvious to us, but not to everybody, because this is a very particular dimension of Egyptian dance. This is not the commercial dimension of Egyptian dance, which, as you mentioned, and as I mentioned before, it's very much focused on the performing part. So there is like an obsession on technique and choreography and performing into a very stage diva competitive mode. So what we're speaking here about, it's a totally different dimension of Egyptian dance that most teachers never get to explore. So they don't even know what we're talking about. So could you give us examples, according to your experience, according to your observation of yourself and your students, what exactly can be healed through dance? Can you give me objective examples?
Well, really, I think that there's infinite possibilities of what can be healed. For myself, something that I'm working on a lot over the last 2 years is about the masculine within me. So we all have feminine and masculine. We all have a shadow side of the feminine and masculine within us. And I guess this was provoked in myself because there has been a lot in the media about masculinity. I began to think, well, this is also within us. It's also within women. It's not only men. And how to look at that in myself. And this shadow, this kind of shadow side, because obviously the masculine is amazing as well. It's very powerful. It's very dynamic. We need that in the dance and to hold ourselves. And so I began to explore the movement and and that different emotions of the light and the shadow. And it's been very, very interesting because the more I've been working on that in me, the more men have been interested to come to Awakened Bellydance sessions. So there's been this correlation between the integration of that within myself and finding how I can use the power of that within me instead of thinking, oh no, push it away and keep it there because I don't, you know, I don't want anyone to know that that is within me, but instead bringing that forward and and really embracing it as a part of me as well. As for others, it's so many different things happened from people having huge healings from abuse from childhood and from adulthood, from abusive relationships, anything.
Okay, Katie, I am not seeing you, or I'm seeing you frozen. I'm not sure if our participants can see you well or not. I'm just seeing you frozen. So if you could refresh your camera, your system. Okay. Guys, are you seeing Katie frozen as well? Because this is what I'm getting here. Okay. Okay, guys, I think Katie is reinitiating her system. Katie, are you there?
I'm here. You froze when I was talking, so I don't know if that all came or not.
All right, you're back. You are back. All right.
I,
Can you complete what you were saying?
okay. Do you know what heard me up until?
So I was asking you to give us examples of how, what we can heal through dance. What exactly can we heal? What can we rescue? What can we improve through dance? And you were giving us examples.
Yeah. Did you hear what I said about myself, about the shadow side of the masculine?
We started hearing you, yes, and then it froze.
Okay. Yeah, well, what I found is that as I began to look at that within myself, the shadow side of the masculine and the feminine, and bring that more into an integration, the dynamics in my work changed, and the dynamics of my performance changed as well. And also more men wanted to come and do Awakened Bellydance session. So I noticed a direct correlation between working on this in myself and the way that then masculine in a physical form was drawn to work with me more. For other people, there's been so many different things that have happened, from changing their jobs to physical ailments and issues healing, to feeling strong to work on maybe things, abuse that has happened in their life, or rape, being feeling that they are in a safe space and coming to a point of strength where they can really look at that and how it's affecting them. Also with fertility, there have been several women who have felt that things blocked. They've been trying to get pregnant, and lo and behold, babies are now here. So it really, it can open up in any way. Sometimes it's not always what you expect and not always what you want. It's whatever your body is calling for.
Okay, that's great. And we could go in so many ways, but I would like to focus on two specific aspects. One that we talked about when we prepared this webinar, and the other one that we didn't mention actually, but I'm sure it's very familiar to you. So one is the way dance affects our emotions and how by using our emotions through dance we can heal ourselves. But on another level, also, I want to ask you about body acceptance, because I think from my own experience that, okay, guys, I'm going to ask you to turn off your phones, your microphones and your camera. Lou, please turn off your microphone and your camera because we're listening to you. Okay? Thank you. So as I was saying, two specific aspects to the healing process that I've personally witnessed in myself and in my students in so many ways has to do with the emotions that we use in our dance and also body acceptance. So before we go to the emotional side, which is a little bit more sophisticated, it's a little bit more, I would say, subtle, let's go to the first thing that I believe affects people when they start studying Egyptian dance, which is body image, body acceptance, self-care, the way they start to see their bodies, the way they arrive to first to start with. I mean, the way most people arrive to Egyptian dance, and the way they relate to their bodies when they start, and then how that changes in time, the kind of acceptance they gain of their physical body, the kind of appreciation they gain, and the consequences that appreciation has, not only in the way they dance, but in the way they live. Because as you may know, of course, and everybody who is watching us may have experienced, the things that you improve in the dance field will have a reflection, will have consequences in your life. So obviously, if I start loving my body and appreciating it and taking care of it, there will be consequences outside of the dance field, right? So I want to ask you about body acceptance, which is perhaps, as I mentioned, the most basic way of healing, or the most obvious that someone goes through when they start studying Egyptian dance. What is your experience on that? How do your students arrive, and how do they transform themselves through body acceptance? That is a natural consequence of Egyptian dance.
I like how you call it consequences.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I think the first thing is going to be posture. People start to be aware of how they're holding their body. This naturally is going to allow the energy, the blood flow to run more freely throughout them, which means they're getting more oxygen, they're stretching more. So this is going to change the way that they look. It's going to change how their clothes sit on them, the presence that they have, which, as you say, it's going to infiltrate, whether it's in their job or in their family, just walking down the street in everyday life. As we know, the movements of Egyptian dance are so perfect for a woman's shape, and inside and outside. So it's going to make childbirth easier. It's going to make recovering from childbirth much easier as well, because we're activating and strengthening from the inside. And through childbirth, for instance, I feel, and this again is personally as well, it's, you then feel more empowered, because you understand your body, you understand those movements which ease period pain or ease labor, and are going to aid you in pushing this consequence out of you.
Okay.
Beautiful little consequence. And then, and also something that I've really noticed is, for it doesn't matter what shape or size a woman is, they begin to understand that they don't need to look like everybody else. The way that the body moves different, even if they're in the same exact same shape as someone else. Everybody looks different because their body is a different size, it's a different length, and people begin to accept that more, which is really beautiful, because they realize that it isn't a competition there isn't a judgment there. It's about really allowing their body to move in its natural way. And I think when they understand that, and the relation to their body in their life generally, it helps to ease that feeling that, okay, my body is my own, and I can use it in the way that I want to, and look at these amazing things I can do with my body, look at my amazing hips and the movements that I can make.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have this experience, but throughout the years, and I noticed something very beautiful, which is, all of us have our own aesthetic beauty concept. I mean, what we consider beautiful, what we don't consider beautiful. And what changed, one of the many things that changed in me through Egyptian dance and through watching so many bodies and different shapes of bodies and different characters move in front of me, was this awareness that there is beauty in diversity. And there is beauty in owning who you are without criticizing and wanting to fit into a certain standard of beauty. And I think, in Egyptian dance, the more we walk towards this appreciation of diversity, the more we walk towards the dance itself and what it's proposing, but also the more we walk into self-love and self-empowerment. Because when you realize your body is unique, you start to realize you are unique. So appreciating the physical body is just the beginning of acknowledging, wait a second, I am different and so is everybody else. So it's not a question of who's better or worse, because if we are unique, we are not comparing ourselves to anyone. An apple does not compare itself to an orange because they're so different. So there's no point in comparison, right? So what I've witnessed, and it's so beautiful about body acceptance and body image, and something that, again, it was Egyptian dance who taught me, was to not only accept diversity of body shapes and see the beauty in diversity, but also realize that once we start accepting the uniqueness of our physical body, we realize we are unique. And we're not only a physical body, of course, we are human beings. So we are a physical body, we are a mental body, we are an emotional body, we are a spiritual body. So everything is working together. Once I start loving my physical body, I start to love myself as a whole. And that is enormous, of course, because the consequences, once more, the consequences of that can really change a person's life. It will change not only the way you dance, I mean, that's already cool, but it will change my choices in life, how I take care of myself, how I respect my mind, how I speak my mind, how I express or not myself, how I take care of my emotional world, the people I love, the quality of feelings that I cherish and that I feed in myself, the quality of feelings that I dare expressing. There's so many beautiful things that can come from body acceptance that are not only related to the physical body, and I've seen it certainly in myself, but I've seen it in so many students, and it is such a beautiful, beautiful thing, even almost scary thing to witness, because if people knew the potential this dance has of really empowering them. I use this word a lot and I really mean it. It's scary and it's beautiful. And I'm building a bridge here to the emotions and the emotional body. And you mentioned when we were discussing the webinar, epigenetics and the trauma that we carry within our bodies, the trauma and wounds and issues that very often are not from this life, or they're not from ourselves, they're from our moms, from our grandmothers, from our ancestral lineages, may that be from father side or from mother side. So we will inherit so much, we don't even know it's there running the game. So what can you tell me in terms of epigenetics, and what can you tell me in terms of how dance can awaken and can move and can heal the emotions that we bring inside from ourselves, from our own life, or from the life of the ones who preceded us, our mothers, our grandmothers? What can you tell me about that?
Epigenetics is a really amazing new science, and it's really looking at, as you say, the way that we inherit emotion and we carry that in our physicality. With that, also what I'm really interested in is quantum physics and this idea that time is non-linear. So what we're thinking is maybe the past, or it's the present, or the future is actually all happening simultaneously. So when we're an egg within our mum, when she is an egg within her mum, we are there, we exist already, and they've proven this now. And the way that we absorb emotions and we absorb the experiences still while we're in utero. and we carry those. So it may be that what we think makes us up, our personality, our opinions, the choices that we make, the way our body is, it can be everything, may not actually belong to us. It can be something which is we've carried. Maybe for somebody, especially if someone is very empathic, they can be the sponge for the family, carrying all the patterns, the belief systems, and being really overloaded with that, and be very sensitive, especially as children. So what I've been finding is that we can access these emotions through the movement, through breath work with guided visualization combined with the belly dance movements. We can access these stories that we're holding within, and we can speak to our body. And you can do that anytime. If you have a headache, you wake up with a headache, okay, body, what's this headache about? Is this my headache? What message are you trying to tell me through this pain in my head? And then see what your body responds. It might be a word, it might be a feeling, a color. And the more that you communicate, the more dialogue and clear dialogue that you can build up, so that then your body begins to tell you, okay, food I need today because I need a particular vitamin or mineral, this that I'm feeling because my period's about to start, or during my period, and this is what we need to do. And through the movement we can access this energy. If you think of it as stories as energy within ourselves, we also know now through science that everything is vibrating matter at different frequencies of vibration, and within our body, depending on what we're holding in those particular places, the vibration is going to be different. So if you think of it in a simple way, that it's heavy or light, or maybe somewhere in between. So what is held in that lightness? Is it that newfound body confidence and body image? And what is held in the heaviness? Is that a little nagging chat that goes on telling you that, oh, body's like this, or, and actually whose voice is that, that we're hearing from somewhere along the lineage? And we can work with that, and this, it also brings in inner child work, and again, it can go in many directions, but it is a real thing that we're holding physically, that we are all the parts and pieces of all of those that came before us. And what we see through our eyes is we're seeing through lenses and filters, because we're also seeing all the experiences that they have ever experienced, and this is what we then perceive our reality as. And once you start to remove those lenses and those veils, life begins to look differently. Colors change, your connection to the world around you changes.
Uh-huh. That is so fascinating, and I can identify everything that you're telling me. Although then again, it's still unfortunately very out of what most teachers do in the Egyptian dance field. And one of the reasons why these things are not taught and are not studied and developed, I think, it's because of something that I want you to comment about, which is our lack of trust in our physical body. So what I noticed as a teacher and as a dancer, because I danced from a very early age, but I started in the other spectrum of dance. So I started in classical ballet, which is in many ways the opposite of Egyptian dance. So I was not trained, like many of us, I would say most of us, to listen to my body. And to trust its messages, as you were describing now. Because in order to do the work that we're proposing here, we have to redesign our relationships to our body, also in terms of our trust in their wisdom. And not even the trust, we have to acknowledge that our bodies know stuff. And most of us don't know. We live in cultures where the head knows everything. right? I mean, we associate wisdom and information with intellect, with a rational mind. We don't associate the physical body with intelligence, with wisdom, with valuable information. We think that the physical body is mostly something that we use to get us from point A to point B and to perform certain tasks. So it's almost like a machine without a soul and without a mind, and that is not true. So I was hearing you speak, and another question was coming to my mind, something that we did not discuss when we did the pre-meeting for this webinar, which is how do you think dancers can develop a better trust in their body? How do you think they can start really listening and acknowledging the wisdom in their bodies? How can they go from trusting their mind, which, by the way, plays tricks on us all the time? So I am very, very doubtful of our mind, and I would think twice, you know, if I wanted to believe anything my head tells me to, because just because we think it, it doesn't mean it's the truth. It's truth. So let's start doubting our minds a little bit more and trusting our bodies a little bit more. And my question to you is, how can we do that? How would you do that in a class? Let's say if you wanted to develop your students' trust in their bodies, what would you do? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, something that I use a lot is I ask them to close their eyes, and I'll play music where it's a solo instrument, so an accordion, violin, something where it's very specific to that instrument. And then I ask them to move their body while with their eyes are closed, so they're seeing the sound as a shape. So often what I use is the analogy of a river, and a river flows, it might get diverted by stones, it might go up, it might go down, and the instrument plays in the same way. It has high notes and low notes and fast and slow. And so I say to them, listen only to this instrument and only move your body in the shape and sound of this. So and also you can layer it up with then what is the emotion that you feel with that. So you bring that emotion to yourself. It could be thinking of a memory, or something that's happened in your life, and really seeing and moving their bodies so that their body is an instrument that is being led by the music, rather than, oh, I'm going to move my body and there happens to be a violin playing. The violin's playing and it's moving you. So following the pauses in that, following the big shapes, the small, and allowing your body to move itself rather than you giving the instructions. And at first people find it difficult, especially because you're not saying, okay, do 4 snake arms, whether it goes with the music or not. You're saying, oh, this is you, and there's no right or wrong with this. It's everybody's going to hear it differently, and I will also hear it differently. So it's your individual interpretation again, and this is really empowering. And also they find that they begin to move their body in ways that they haven't before, because the music, the emotion of the music is moving them, and the vibration of the instrument. And also what I've done is go back further. I've said, okay, imagine the emotion of the musician as he was playing, and then go back further. Think of the wood that the instrument is made from. Who cut the tree? How were they feeling at that time? Who shaped the instrument? What was going on around them? What were their emotions? Is it a family business making violins? And so going back and back and back, and then who planted the seed of the tree that the wood came from? How did that seed get there? And what was the tree that seed came from? So I do it in this way. It's like going back and back beyond layers that we don't usually think about.
Amongst all these beautiful things that you just told us, and it's really a pleasure to listen to you. I told you before, I love your eloquence, and not only the contents of what you share, but the way you share it. It really reaches me, and I hope it reaches everybody who's watching us live and then in the recorded webinar. And something caught my attention in what you just said, which I think is also very much into the healing properties of Egyptian dance, which is the permission to listen, to interpret, to feel, to experience the music in our own way. So you just described a possible exercise, and in that exercise is one of the keys, I believe, to great Egyptian dance. And I don't mean only to great Egyptian dance in an artistic, performative context. I mean also in terms of the effects it can have on us, because when you allow dancers to have their own perspective on the music, when you allow them to go inside and ask, how do I feel this? How does my body react to this? How do my ears catch this? How do I feel this music? How does it move me? How do I want to grab it and use it and express it? I think that permission is a huge key to healing the inner child that you already mentioned. And so many of us are operating from a wounded inner child that is not allowed to make mistakes, that is terrified of making mistakes, that is terrified of standing out, terrified of being loud, of doing something different. God forbid, people will not like us and people will criticize us and we will be ostracized of the group. So there is this almost collective wounded inner child that I believe proper teaching in Egyptian dance can heal. And it starts with what you said, allowing people to have their exploration space. I call it education versus exploration. So there is so much that teachers can give us, but there is a space that is sacred. And that space that you were describing, it's the space where someone will close their eyes, will go inside, will listen to the music and see how they operate with that, how they can create from that, how can they be truthful to who they are and interpret that music in their own unique way without wanting to fit into a certain role model or a certain image, or beyond good and evil, beyond beautiful and ugly, beyond correct and incorrect. That space for exploration is once more very rare, unfortunately, in the Egyptian dance field, because then again, we are operating in a market that is very much focused on creating an image and a cliche of what Oriental dance should look like and how things should look like. And when I think about the environment, for instance, in Cairo, where I was performing for a long time, and then I think about the international environment, so festivals and all these markets that I've worked on, I cannot remember one single day, event, class that I have witnessed where that space that you were describing was given to the students. And that's a shame, because then we all become clones of someone.
Yeah.
We all become copies of someone. And the individuality each one of us could bring to the dance is erased. It's not there. So basically we are erasing ourselves. We're not only erasing our fingerprint from the dance, we are erasing ourselves. And we teachers are creating clones. We are not creating individuals. So I thought it was so beautiful the way you described that exercise. And I was thinking, okay, I have to make this note. Now, to close the subject, I would like to launch one more question at you, and it has to do with emotions. And again, I think it has to do with permission to experience the music in our own way, permission to express the music in our own way. So we have cataloged emotions into nice emotions and negative emotions, right? I mean, everything on the range of rage, sadness, desperation, envy, hopelessness, nostalgia, feeling lost, feeling down. All these range of very human, very real emotions have been excluded from the dance. I'm sure you have witnessed, as all of us have witnessed, teachers telling us, smile, especially if you go on stage, you have to smile all the time. That's creepy as hell. First of all, let's acknowledge that's creepy as hell, because nobody smiles all the time. That's not real. But on another level, what's telling us is that there are allowed emotions and emotions which are not allowed, or emotions that should not be addressed. And I think healing through dance has a lot to do with reclaiming those emotions and dancing those emotions that we label as negative. So what is your experience in that? And how do you think that reclaiming these negative emotions can make you a better dancer and a happier human being?
Yeah, and I think something which is this dichotomy with Egyptian dance is about, it has this image of being something very sexy, and people trying to dance it in a very sexy way, and then we're shamed if we dance it in a sexy way, and if we really embody our sensuality, not necessarily our sexuality. And people get confused between the two, that we are sensual beings, and we can really own that in our dance without titillating, or without going more into something that isn't comfortable for us, because sometimes it can feel forced, that people are trying to be sexy, and it's a mask, as many emotions are when we dance. And it's like there's an emotion, there's a kind of put on emotion going on here, there's a dance going on here, and the music going on here, and there isn't an integration and correlation between them. So for me, when I really allowed myself to feel me, and explore all these different parts of me, and not be ashamed of them, whether it was what is perceived as a negative or positive emotion, they were free to flow. So then, even if I didn't know what a song was about, say I was improvising and I didn't know what the words mean or something, because I'm allowing my emotions to flow freely, I can, it's like the vibration of me can pick up and read on the vibration of the music. So naturally these emotions show, whether that's a smile, whether that's a kind of more sorrowful face or serious face, it comes through naturally. I don't have to think to, oh, I need to choreograph a happy face here, or a sad face here. It's
Yeah.
it just comes. And also it may be that the song is a sorrowful and it's about grief, but somewhere in accessing that grief there's also joy, and that can come through, and vice versa. So it's in having that freedom to just to feel, and to not repress anything. And I think the more that we can do that, it again is going to reach out into every aspect of our life. But on stage, there's nowhere to hide. You have to be authentic, and the more authentic you are in your emotions, the more authentic your dance is going to be. And that also makes improvisation much easier, because the music is moving you. You're a visual representation of the sound.
Yeah, you know, you said so many interesting things, and those would be things for new webinars, because each of the subjects you touched are so complex, and they deserve their own webinar. So you mentioned sensuality, you know, which is a very hot topic, as we all know, especially for Egyptian dance. And in relation to that, there would be so much to say. The only thing I would like to add there is, you know, I think there is a huge misconcept of sensuality. So all of us collectively carry a very distorted image of what sexuality and sensuality are. So obviously, instead of loving and enjoying sensuality in Egyptian dance, we still misunderstand it, and we still feel bothered by it. Because if we're not comfortable and clear about what sensuality and sexuality are, and if we have dirtiness and distortion around those themes, of course we will never get Egyptian dance, because Egyptian dance is about sacred sexuality as well, and that's another webinar, that's an whole other chapter. But what I wanted to add here is, it would be interesting also for the sake of healing to question our concepts of sensuality and sexuality, and why it is so shameful, and why it is a taboo, and why it is that a woman or a man enjoying themselves while they're dancing is so disturbing to many of us. Why is there such an issue, you know? And if we all consider this question, why am I so bothered? Why does it trigger me to watch a beautiful Oriental dancer, male or female, enjoying themselves in their own skin, being sensual? I mean, naturally sensual, you know? So I'm not talking about provocative poses. I'm not talking about exotic stripteases. That's another stuff. That's another area. That's not Egyptian dance. We're talking about someone who is naturally feeling good in their own skin. They are enjoying themselves. Why is that so triggering? Why is that so fascinating, but also so scary? So that's a question for another webinar, very hot topic, of course. On another level, you know, what I witnessed, and to complete your beautiful answer, is that the more we acknowledge all sorts of emotions, even the ones we label as unpleasant or negative, the more interesting we will be as dancers, because our audiences are human beings. So unless you are dancing for aliens on Mars, and if you are, I congratulate you, you are a pioneer. But if you are not, if you're dancing for human beings like you, your audience will see themselves in you if you are fully human. They will not relate to you if you are a doll smiling all the time, because that's not human. They will see themselves mirrored the more human you are. And being human also means feeling desperate sometimes. It also means feeling down. It also means feeling hopeless. It also means feeling furious. We're not always sunny and shining. So the more truth you bring to your dance, the more your audience will relate. At the same time, and I'm sure you've been through this for sure, the more you go through these emotions, the more you release them. So if I'm sad, and if I dance my sadness, at the end of that dance piece, I will feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like if dancing through the sadness makes it smaller. So everybody who has been in Egyptian dance, independently of the teacher you've been studying with, I am sure you've been through this. I'm sure you can relate. The more you acknowledge how you feel, and the more you use what you're feeling truthfully, the more you release it. And the more you release it, the better you will feel. You know, in Cairo, when I was working with my own orchestra, sometimes I was exhausted, and sometimes I was feeling like hell for whatever reason. So I would intentionally talk to my musicians and tell them, guys, today I feel like hell. So let's do a sad, depressing program so that I can dance well, because today, this is my truth. So I'm not going to do, you know, a fancy, happy, light Saidi today. It's ridiculous. It's going to sound and feel fake. I'm not going to smile and be all bubbly, because that's not how I feel today. So if I want to serve my craft, and if I want to serve my audience, I'm going to be truthful and use what I'm feeling in my show program. And that's exactly what I did. We would change the program to fit my mood, what Egyptians call mazeg, yani mazegi, my mood. And this truthfulness, this authenticity is not only very powerful as an impact for your audience, but it's very powerful because you will digest emotions and you will release them so much easier. You will go through ups and downs and assimilate your experiences in life through dance in such a lighter, healthier, beautiful way, instead of rejecting those things that you don't even want to feel, and you don't want people to see you really feeling that way. And I ask, you know, what's the problem? Healing without vulnerability is not healing. We have to be vulnerable. So if I want to heal, I have to show my heart as it is. If it's broken, I will show you my heart broken. And by doing that, I'm empowering myself. I'm not weakening myself. And that is, it has such a power, such an immense power. So I just wanted to add this last note. Now, is there something you feel our viewers could do today to heal through dance? One single thing, one suggestion, one thing they can do when they go into their classroom with their teachers, or when they dance at home, wherever they are dancing. Give us one exercise, one change of attitude, something that you feel will help them heal through dance.
Okay, something that I do every day and is a grounding exercise, and this helps me to be more present and more embodied physically. And there are many, many ways that you can do this. The easiest one is to, again, close your eyes and have your feet really balanced on the floor. And oh, frozen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So yeah, close your eyes, feeling your feet strongly on the floor,
Yes.
and imagining from your hips like you have a big tree trunk going down, and the roots of that are coming out through your feet. So it's like you're really planting yourself into the earth. And I find by doing this, it just gathers myself, especially if you're somebody who dreams a lot and you're off on the astral at night. This is a way of really coming back to your body in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, breathing up your heart, a breath technique that I use is like you are sipping through a straw. And as you do that, you bring your hands up to your heart, and then and imagine that your arms are like wings. So you're really opening your chest. Your arms and hands are an extension of your heart space. So whatever is happening there for you, you can breathe it from your womb space up into your heart, and then move that through. So whether it's a movement with your hands and arms, or you're just visualizing it coming out from your fingertips, and this kind of sets you solidly this way, and then it also opens you this way, so that you're just really aware of your physical self and your emotional self, and you can check in with, okay, what's going on in my heart today, what's going on in my body today.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Now, I'm going to launch a few short questions at you, questions that I will deliver to all my guests. And the first question is, how would you like to see Egyptian dance in 50 years? Give me an image of what you would like to happen to the Egyptian dance field in 50 years from now.
Oh, this is a really tricky question, I think. For me, I really think it's about bringing the femininity back, the sacred femininity back into the dance. And yeah, in the body, obviously we know there's a big trend for cosmetic surgery and these very hard masculine bodies. It's just allowing the softness to come through, and really owning the dances ourselves, so that we're each dancing our own individual dance. And I love the old dancers, Naima O'Keefe and Gamal, and the way that really was one of the key insights to me when I first discovered them, was that I saw how they were so feminine, and they were at the same time so sensual, and they owned the dance, they owned themselves. And I think this is something that has been lost. And each of them had very unique and individual personalities that you saw come through in the dance. So for me, I think it would be to be individual, to be you, to be ourselves when we dance, and not feel the need to compete, or that we need to be a clone of anybody else.
Very good. Okay, what do you think each of us could do today to elevate Egyptian dance? What could we contribute with to elevate Egyptian dance today?
Okay, I think working and supporting workshops where there are live music sessions with the musicians, because again, this is generations that are being lost, and the opportunities to dance to music are very rare now. So I think supporting the musicians who are still here and willing to share this amazing magic and with us, and to go and understand how to interpret the music, how to be with the music, and not be worried about what the latest trend is in doing this movement or another. So really to go to the roots.
Very good. All right, once more. One of my favorite questions, of course, because I'm a book lover, I'm a book addict actually, so I love to ask this. What would be your favorite book or books? 3 maximum on dance. Not on Egyptian dance, but I mean on dance in general. Which books would you recommend our audience?
Okay, well, both of us love this one, the autobiography of Isadora Duncan.
Yes.
She's, I would love to sit down, have a glass of wine with her and pick her brain.
Yeah, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't, right? Who wouldn't?
Yeah. Okay. Anything written by George Gurdjieff. He developed the Gurdjieff movements with sacred dance. He had a very particular way that he saw movement and how to work with it, and how to discover ourselves and break out of ourselves. And so his work has been very instrumental in my path. And then another one, his name is Hanayat Khan, and he was Indian, kind of 1900s, and he brought Sufism to the West. He's a musician and talked about vibration and movement. So for me, this obviously relates to dance, and I found his writing really amazing. So yeah, my 3.
Can I ask you to share those references with me so that I can share them with all the registered participants? So what will happen is you will all receive post-webinar information on the replay of our webinar. And what I'm going to ask you is to send me the references of the books you just mentioned so that I can share them with our audience and they can check those books. Okay. All right. Last question is about the project you're currently working on that you're most excited about. I know you have beautiful things going on. Choose one. The one that you are most passionate about, the one you want to promote the most right now, the one you're really focused. What would that be?
Well, I opened a retreat center in Bulgaria this year. I live there in Bulgaria most of the time, and this is really it's my headquarters, if you like, of sacred dance, because I travel so much, and I wanted to have a place that was the integral center of that, where I could hold more trainings and really develop a community there, so that we're living, eating, breathing sacred dance therapy and living near the beach. And yeah, it's really, really beautiful. So for me, it's also me an anchor from where I'm going to write a book about my journey. And I've been promising this for about 10 years, but it has to come now. So yeah, my retreat center, it's called Sirius Homestay, and yeah, it's close to Varna in Bulgaria, and we're doing some really beautiful work there with sacred dance.
That's exciting. And guys, by the way, you are going to receive also an email post-webinar with the link to Katie's retreat. So I will invite you to check the link I'm going to share with you in that email and to see what the program holds. And of course, they will be able to reach out to you and ask you questions if they have doubts, whatever. So all the information will be in this email. Go and check it, okay? Now, I'm gonna read a few of the comments here because we promised that we would address questions if there were questions, and there are. So first question is from Emma. Hi, Emma. And she says, one of my questions is, how do you deal with nerves, or how do you channel the nerves to power your dance and expression of the music you love? Okay, I imagine that you mean nerves being anxious, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know if Emma is talking about performing, but I
Yeah.
imagine she is. I'm just presuming. Emma, if you're still with us, can you clarify? I think Emma is talking about anxiety and fear related to performance.
Yeah.
I presume. So what would you answer, Katie? I'll leave this one to you. What would you answer? How can we use the nerves or the fear or the anxiety to boost our dance instead of blocking us?
Yeah. The grounding that I spoke about is something that I found really helpful with dealing with this, because I'm bringing, instead of going rah out here and, oh God, I've got to do this and what's going to happen, it brought me back into myself. So this is really important. If you think about the fear and the anxiety and how much power and energy it's taking to have that and to try to control it, when you let go of that control and again let it flow through you, you can use that in your performance. You know, allow that to come through, because it is also an authentic part of you. And I think it is something that changes over time. The more performing you do, it doesn't necessarily stop, but your body begins to deal with it differently. And also, again, you can, the speaking with your body, okay, I can see you're feeling like this, and more being a witness of it instead of being in it and freaking out, feeling that you're like, oh, being the witness of yourself. And okay, this is how you're feeling right now, and I can see what you're going through. And yeah, I feel quite nervous as well, but I think we can do it together, you know, like this kind of thing, to 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 kind of settle that and ease it, but not in a way that is just closing it down. So allowing that to be there.
Very well. I would add also, you know, that we should recognize that feeling afraid or anxious or nervous before exposing your heart in front of a group of strangers is normal. So sometimes you think, oh, I shouldn't be so nervous, especially if you are experienced. But as you mentioned, you know, and I've performed millions of times, and I mean literally millions of times, and I never stopped feeling nervous. And I never stopped feeling like I want to run away. Can somebody take me out of here? Because there is a very understandable fear when you know you're going to be on the spotlight, exposing your rawest self. Hopefully, that's why we perform. We just mentioned authenticity and, you know, expressing your true emotions and being yourself fully. So of course this is frightening, you know, it's scary as hell, and it's not something that we do every day. So let's just acknowledge that going on a stage and exposing yourself physically, emotionally, mentally to a bunch of strangers is a very frightening experience. So it's normal that we feel anxious. But I love what you said, Katie, and I teach that to my students very often, which is, you know, when you cannot beat it, you befriend it. So if fear and anxiety are there, they're there for a reason. I call them adrenaline. So I don't even call them fear anymore. I call them, it's my adrenaline, okay? So it's not gonna go away. I've noticed that. And the more you perform, also, the more people know you, the more the responsibility to perform well increases. So the more the nervousness increases. It's not gonna go away anytime soon. So instead of treating it like an enemy, something that should not be there, what you do is you bring it to yourself, you bring it closer, and you make it a friend. So you use that energy, that anxiety, and you call it adrenaline. You call it fire, you call it an extra push, whatever, you use it, you don't reject it, okay? It's very, very important. Now, Susan says, my question is whether you use somatics in your dance at all, and what do you think about it and its relationship to healing through dance? What do you think about this?
So somatics as in specific movements, or
Susan, if you are still with us, can you clarify what you mean? Her question is exactly this: whether you use somatics in your dance at all, and what do you think about it and its relationship to healing through dance? Can you be more specific? That would be
and
helpful.
I could just add something to the last question, which may help if you're at the backup stage or waiting to go on. what you said about adrenaline, it's our fight or flight response. We want to be there, we want to perform, but there's a big part of us that wants to run away as well.
Yeah.
So we have these two sides of the nervous system, with the rest and digest and fight or flight. So our kidneys are being pumped for the adrenaline. We have these nerves going off from either side of our spine, which get activated. So if you do a movement like backwards figure of 8 and bring your hands onto your pubic bone, onto your womb space, as you make this movement, just really, really slowly and really being present with it, this helps to settle your nervous system and your adrenals.
Okay, very well. And breath as well. You know, sometimes we forget it's the simplest things. I mean, you know, just going back to your breath, inhaling, exhaling, closing your eyes, you know, holding your womb, for instance. You can hold your tummy and just stay there with your breath and slower your breath. When you control your breath, you control a lot. You control your mind, you control your nervous system. Breath has enormous power. So if you want to control that nervousness a little bit more, I would also, you know, suggest go back to your breath, because it's incredibly simple and incredibly efficient for this and for many other things. So Susan adds, in relation to the somatics, somatics is popping up everywhere as a form of healing and psychology. Just wondered if Katie used it at all or had come across it.
Yeah, it seems to be quite a buzzword these days, and about how, really how we can access our emotions through movement. And this could be any kind of movement. It doesn't have to be something that's been prescribed. It's really, okay, I feel this emotion. Where do I feel it's held in my body? I feel it's here in my shoulder. Okay, shoulder, how do you want to move? What is to release or ease that emotion? What is going to give me more clarity with it? And you can just follow your own body with it.
Mm-hmm. And there is so much we can tell about a personal emotional state by the state of their body, by their posture, by the way they allow themselves to move or not, right? I mean, I'm sure you have noticed this when you look at a group, especially if it's not a big group, so you can give attention to each person. You can tell about a person's state of mind and emotional state, and sometimes even specific traumas and issues they're going to go through, or they have gone through the way they move, through the way they hold tension in particular parts of the body, through the way they have blocked certain parts of the body, through the way they refuse to move certain parts of the body. It's quite obvious, quite obvious. So I think, you know, even if we don't use the word somatics, anyone who knows Egyptian dance in depth, and anyone who uses a pedagogy that is really willing to help people, not only to throw nice choreographies at them, because that's, again, the mainstream tendency. You know, what you see nowadays, and for a long time, you know, teachers go into a classroom to show their skills. They don't go into a classroom to help the students. They go into a classroom to show how fantastic they are and what amazing choreographies they can build for the students, and copy them, follow them, and bye-bye, I will give you my autograph. So this is the general tendency nowadays in Cairo, in festivals all around the world. But if you are a teacher who's there for the right reason, I mean, you're there to give. You're not there to receive, to show how fantastic you are. Because I think that's the place of a show. That's where you should shine. A class, or the place of a teacher, is a context for giving. You're there serving your students. You're not there to be a star, okay? So I would leave that for the stage. As a teacher, I'm sure if you're doing it right, you have come across somatics, even if you don't use the word. Even if you don't use that word ever. I never use this word, and I do it all the time. I've been working with this since I started. So, you know, sometimes we don't name it, but it's there. If you know Egyptian dance in depth, and if you really believe it has the potential to help people, not only dance better, but to live better, then I think you cannot escape somatics, and you cannot escape the relationship between emotions and body, between your mental state and your body, between your spiritual state and your body. There is no way we can deny that connection if we're doing it right. Yeah? Okay. Very well. Is there anything you would like to add, Katie? And I know there's so much more to say about all of this, and I've been rushing you and jumping from question to question because we're working within a time frame. But is there anything you feel would be of value to our participants that you would like to finish with?
Um, I just allow yourself to be wild. Allow yourself to access the wild you, and uh, and see what happens. This is very interesting. and and that wild you may be very quiet in some moments, and in other moments not. But if you can allow her to come through, like really, and this is again with epigenetics, where you can also draw on experiences and the wisdom of ancestors. You know, all of those ancestors that at those different in their life, wildness, where they were completely free, and they were really in tune with nature and in their bodies and with their menstrual cycle, and you know, all of this, if you can bring together in you, it will completely transform everything. And yeah, and don't allow society to tame you.
Wow. Okay, that sounded very Isadora Duncan like. I love it, of course. I love everything that is on the side, obviously. And I subscribe. I sign beneath what you said 100%. So I'm just gonna read one more comment and then we're gonna wrap. Emma is saying, I think when we dance, we all, both students and teachers, have something to give. For me, when I dance, I think it's definitely a shared experience. Audience and dances, two-way channel. Absolutely, Emma, absolutely. It's a conversation between dancer and music and audience, and also a conversation between students and teachers, as you say. Of course, it is never a monologue, I believe. Teaching and even performing, it's never a monologue. It's always a communication. We should aim for connection. No, not exhibition. It's not me showing you how fantastic I am. Nobody gives a damn, honestly. When people go to a dance show, hopefully they go to get moved, to be moved, to feel something. So showing off your skills is not enough, not as a teacher and definitely not as a performer. So in order to move them, you have to connect with them. So you have to connect with your students and you have to connect with your audience from a human point of view, not from a separation point of view. Look at me, I'm so fantastic, you know nothing about it, just look at me and admire me and applaud me. That's not connection, that's not a dialogue, that's a monologue, and a very boring one, I may add. So yes, Emma, I agree totally, that's the spirit. Okay guys, we have to wrap. I'm not happy about wrapping this up because I could talk with Katie and have you here. Guys, thank you for your presence forever. It's very interesting, the theme itself. Again, there would be so much more to say about it, and it's so interesting to speak with you, Katie. So I acknowledge you for your work. I acknowledge you for daring to do something unique and walking your talk, which is also not very common, but it's very precious. Okay, guys, thank you so much. You will have the recording of this webinar. We're sorry for the technical issues. This is live streaming, so we're working with machines and internet. You know how it goes, but the contents are here, and I thank you very much for your presence. Katie, good luck for your retreat and everything. All the success in the world. You deserve it. And guys, I hope you enjoyed it, okay? And keep in touch.